Hello, everybody. Today I have a really exciting guest I want to share with you. And I met him I think 5, 6 years ago now, Ryan, nerding out at the NFCA Coaches Convention where college coaches come together, club coaches to learn, share. And I came across him walking around with Lindsay Leftwich, who's now the head coach at North Carolina State, and Sharona McDonald, who's now at Michigan State. And they introduced me to him, and I just wanted to hang out at his booth and learn more and more and more. So this is Ryan Harrison, and he is the owner and trainer of Slow the Game Down. And it's basically a visual performance enhancement training that can help you see what you're doing better and perform better. How'd I do?
Not bad, Nicole.
Not bad? All right.
I'm a little bit of jack of all trades, but you got the main one right there. Slow the game down, and you know it's interesting. I always like nerding out too, and in fact, being at the show, um, I don't like selling necessarily. I'd rather talk shop, and so
Yeah.
today we'll talk a little shop. But yeah, I'll give you a little bit more background. I've been training visual performance skills for let's see, I guess about 27 years now. And I've worked for a lot of different organizations and teams, probably about 14 major league clubs. I say major league clubs, sometimes at the minor league level, and collegiate, whether it was collegiate softball, collegiate baseball, numerous teams over those years. And
Yeah.
and then also, I work with a lot of different athletes, such as football players, race car drivers, golfers, hockey players, pretty much any sport. And now, not only from the experience, and I'll explain my experience a little bit more, but I also work as a consultant now for Oakley and developing the Oakley Visual Performance program that they're going to be rolling out in the next few years
Wow.
towards their Oakley athletes and beyond. And then I also work with first responders in the state of Utah, working on visual focus and visual coordination for firemen, policemen, and any first responder, basically. So kind of spread out a little bit more, but it's not really where I wanted to get into. It wasn't my goal when I started 27 years ago, 26, whatever it was. But I was kind of born into this, and everything I learned was from my father, who started in the early 70s working with Kansas City Royals and what they call the Royals Baseball Academy. And so, growing up and around it, I've always been around sports. I played sports, saw what my dad was doing, never really understood what my dad was doing until I went to spring training with him. Didn't believe in him, too. You don't want to listen to your parents a lot of times. And when I went
Right.
to spring training and saw these guys just, amazingly respond to him, and, it's like, and I'll tell you kind of a ironic story is there's a guy going to the Hall of Fame this year, Carlos Beltran, and Beltran was playing with the Royals at the time. And I remember watching him at spring training, run off the field to give my dad a biggest hug and say, "Man, I've never seen the ball like this. This is amazing." And I'm like, "This guy just won Rookie of the Year last year. What's he talking about?" you know.
Yeah.
And there were
Wow.
some other guys too. So it kind of said, "Hey, my dad actually does know something," and it kind of spawned many years now. It's hard to believe how long it's been, and we're not the guys who are out there dancing and getting on Instagram and doing all this showboat and stuff. We're
Yeah.
the guys behind the scenes that are giving really you know some things, some simple cues to learn how to use their eyes to perform. And you know this kind of goes into really what your athletes that are hopefully listening to this is. People think about their eyes as, I have them, they're good, I can see fine. And we all do see fine for the most part. But what we don't really understand is what we don't see until we learn what we don't see. And when you've been around a lot of top athletes, softball world, even outside of the softball world, but there's a difference when those athletes are great. You can tell that they see the game very differently, and it's some of it has to do with what it could be experience, can be involved in it, but a lot of it is how their brain perceives information. And that information in the game of softball is highly visual. Yeah, there might be some feel, there might be some smell, there might be some taste, probably not much taste, but maybe a little bit. um, but a lot of it is when athletes are at their best. And in fact, before I ramble into this, I'll even ask your athletes this question. And I'm going to ask it to you, but hopefully they can answer it on the other side of this. When you were at your best as an athlete, what did you think about? What went on in your brain? What were you thinking about when you were going good?
You want me to answer it?
Yeah,
I love asking that question. And most of the time you ask athletes, and it's true for me too, you go, nothing.
yeah. Now
And
on the
it's 100% true.
yeah, now the opposite side, when you struggle, when the game's tough, what do you think about?
Uh, the best way I could describe it, which I talk to athletes about, it's like you're just racing. Like you don't even finish one sentence before the next one starts about make sure my hands are doing this. So like you're trying to, for me, I was trying to instruct my body a little bit. I wasn't necessarily a worrier about other people, what they thought of what I was doing, which I know is a big factor with a lot of athletes, but it was just fast, super
I got to
fast.
do this. I got to do that. I got to,
Mhm.
and basically another word encompass that is everything, right?
Yeah,
Everything's going on in your head. And then,
everything.
I ask the question too: is when you're at your best, how does your body feel?
Relaxed,
You know, and then when you struggle, how does your body feel?
like a ball, tight ball,
Yeah,
and
nothing.
like a robot. It felt everything felt jerky,
Yeah. Now,
mechanical.
the third question I would ask is when you, and I'm going to start with when you struggle. When you struggle, how well do you see the ball?
I didn't, and that was always my first question when I was struggling. My first question is, "Am I watching the ball?"
Yeah.
Honestly, Ryan, this is years before I met this guy who's like, "This is what he does." It was always my first question because I figured out when that becomes a priority, then my body does what I've taught it to do.
Yeah, and you figured that out, which is phenomenal because that's the next part of it is when you're going well, how well do you see the ball on there?
It's a
And
watermelon. Yeah.
it's a watermelon. And so when you were at your best and you figured this out, some people do figure this out. So a lot of people don't, as you know, but you figure this out. So when you're at your best, you see things really well. You don't think about a lot and you don't feel very much. Yet that's the first thing that we worry about is what I'm feeling, what am I thinking about, instead of understanding
Mhm.
the question of what I'm seeing. And again, going back that people don't really understand what they see and what they don't see. And when someone like your parents or coach says, "Hey, watch the ball," no, duh, like of course,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
this is what the game's about. But it's really not just look at it; it's how we look at it, how we control it.
Mhm.
And the answer a lot of your athletes will say is, "Well, I saw the ball." Well, yes, you did, because and the reality is, in our peripheral, we see motion. So if your eyes are open, you're going to see something move over here. And then
Mhm.
on our mid peripheral, we start seeing color. And in our color, we'll see a yellow object coming at us, optic yellow, whatever you want to call that, softball color. But the but you're on a softball field, you know that it's a yellow object. You're not on the baseball field. You're not, at the beach.
Yeah.
Your brain already knows that if you see yellow, it's a softball. So of course we see the softball, but in our near focus, we see, or near peripheral, we see more detail. In our central focus is where we start seeing the spin and the seams and the movement of what the ball's doing. And that's where the ball looked like that watermelon, like you were talking about, is
Mhm.
when you're in that central vision, it's when your brain is in that high fidelity. And that's when you see things like huge and slow and see the detail. But what happens to all of us is under stress, under pressure, under tension, under fatigue, or not having the skill sets of it, is everything speeds up, our head speeds up, our body starts to speed up, and we get away
Yeah.
trying to see and understand how to control what we see, and things become that wiffle golf ball that's coming at you 120 miles an hour on there and moving up and down, left and right
Yeah.
on there.
Well, I kind of like the way that you set up your Zoom and when you were moving your hands, that's what it reminded me of because you have a blur background, right? And you're very clear. And as you moved, your hands came into focus. And I remember when I wasn't struggling, like I saw the ball, but it was blurry. It was like in pixels
Yeah,
versus when it's quiet and you can see the seams. Like you can literally see it spinning versus what you brought up when kids think, oh, yeah, I saw it. Like, well, what did you see?
yeah. And one of the problems with performance is a lot of times we are satisfied with poor performance. And what I mean by that is we may not swing the best, we may not have picked the right pitch, we may not have been phenomenal, but we got a base hit out of it. And we feel great on there because we got the base hit. But yet you weren't where you need to be to move forward on there. So you don't, what my point to that is really, you don't have to be perfect to be good. What you want to do is learn to be better so that you can be more consistent on there instead
Yeah.
instead of this chance of, oh, I got a chance here, I got a chance there. And even going back, Nicole, we could talk. I kind of said this, but I could probably talk for 10 hours in this call right here, and
Yeah.
still be excited at the end because the thing is, like, vision is so easy, but yet so complex, and it's so important, yet we don't put the importance into it. And then there's a balance to it because we can almost what and this may have happened to you as well, is sometimes it's like, okay, Nicole, watch the ball. Okay, no doubt, I got to watch the ball. But now you're trying to watch the ball so hard that you never see it on there. So there's kind of this over focus and there's under focus. And I laugh, especially with a lot of my pro baseball players. They'll I get a text every once in a while from someone struggling. I'm trying to see the ball. I'm like, okay, that's your problem. You're trying to see the ball.
Yeah.
Let yourself see the ball. Let yourself know how to get your eyes at the right place at the right time. And so, for what I do, um, I break vision into three components. And one is, or pillars, however you want to know, one is the medical side of vision. And I do encourage that every athlete that you have needs to make sure they go get a good eye exam. And I want to explain that a little bit more. It's not just going to Walmart. It's not just going to the local
Goodness.
doctor. Yeah, it's not going to physical.
Okay.
I talk about firefighters and police. When I every time I talk, I always talk about the medical side of things, which I don't do. But the firefighters, oh yeah, we did the physical last week. I'm like, no, that doesn't help on there. What you want to know is how sharp your vision is, the health of your eye. You want to just make sure, because there are so many young kids, as well as adults, that have vision issues without realizing they have vision issues because they don't know they can't see better. So they have this limit of, hey, I see fine, but what does fine mean compared to
Because yeah, their
you?
interpretation is like what I see is the same as what you see, and like that's not
Yeah.
true.
So, like, I always try to get people, hey, just get your eyes from a good optometrist and a sports vision person, someone that's going to be a little bit more in depth on there, and just make sure your eyes
Mhm.
are as sharp and as healthy as they can be on there. And then the second pillar is really about how, what I get into is the skills of vision, how the eyes function, how the brain and the eyes interact, which the eyes are part of the brain. But how the depth perception, how my muscles of my eyes move, speed of recognition, speed of processing, uh, visual identification. There's a lot of different skill sets that are involved in how the eyes and the brain work. It's not about the sharpness of vision. It's really about how our eyes move, including that there's 7 muscles in each eye, 6 that are involved in tracking a ball of each eye, so 12 muscles total. And the seventh muscle is more of a focusing muscle, which actually, it depends who you talk to, but I'm going to tell you, I've been doing this long enough. If that focusing muscle is fatigued, you're going to have fatigue issues out on the field and focusing issues on the field. So it's a big component is training these skills. And that's the cool thing, is those skills for the most part are trainable. Now, how well can you train them? It also depends. Some people we can train phenomenally well to, and some people we get them just better on there. But for the most part, most people, especially if you're playing softball, because you'll probably already be weeded out if you have skill sets that aren't trainable on there. And then the third pillar is great. I can see sharp. I got this great eye coordination, depth perception, visual accuracy stuff. But now I have to perform. And so I call it the tactics of vision. How do I look? When to look, where to look, why to look, how I use these eyes as a tool, not just, hey, I can see great and I got great depth. But if I'm aimed in the wrong place, or if I'm thinking too much, or if I'm nervous, those eyes aren't going to work nearly as well. So learning, again, this triangle of vision is really how I look at it. And they all are important. They're all pieces of a pie. Just because you have phenomenal at all three doesn't mean you're going to be great No, it doesn't, because there's a lot of aspects of this game,
Yeah.
but it can take a lot of average people to another level because they're making better decisions on there. And
Yeah.
and that better decision might be to take a pitch. It's not necessarily to swing at a pitch. Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Or it's more accurate on a throw or a pitch or something like that, or more focused one pitch at a, people talk about one pitch at a time. If they're focused one pitch more, how good would he be on there?
Yeah. I You brought up a good point, and I was trying to figure out the best way to say it, but if you can't see, you can't hit. If you can see, it still doesn't guarantee you can hit, but it sure helps. And one of the things I talk to
Well, we can
athletes
get
the
lucky.
most,
We get
oh
lucky
yeah,
every once in a while. You've heard the thing, blind squirrel find a nut sometimes.
every once in a while. But like I we constantly work it in. We're actually going to work it in this weekend with our training. I work with them right now, Fridays and Sundays, and I'm really enjoying the Max BP machine. It makes them work, but to your point, we have to talk about how to use it. Can't just stare at the hole really hard. Um, but for athletes to understand, like our eyes tell us if to swing, when to swing, and where to swing.
Yeah.
Yet we're just like, oh, well, I'm training my eyes because I'm watching the ball. Like, no, you're not. To be really conscious and intentional about what are your eyes doing. And honestly, when I was a college coach, until we asked the question, I assumed that every kid in the room did what I did with my eyes. And then we asked, I said, well, what do your eyes do when you're getting ready? A few kids said, like, well, I follow the ball all the way around. And I was like, what? But until you start to ask and explore and educate, like kids are just doing the best they can with the information they have. So with what you do, that's why you and I nerd out about it. It's like, no, no, this is another skill that is like needs to be a high priority. If you want to
Yeah.
be a lead, this has to be a high priority of training your vision.
Yeah. And I mean, you bring quite a few little thoughts there. Is people just think if they see, they see enough on there. And the best see differently. And again, I've been around a lot of phenomenal athletes. There are some unicorns out there that just, despite having vision, whatever, they just do things and it's great. But when you take guys like, um, and I'm going to use a few different sports here, and this is a no brainer, but you take Barry Bonds in baseball, who was considered a great hitter. He had phenomenal visual capabilities. When you take Major League Baseball and you look at how many guys have hit 300 in their career, it's very small. It's like around 180 people in
Wow.
maybe 200. There are a lot of 299s, but not a lot of people over 300. And a
Hmm.
majority of those guys are 300s. And I'll just name some names because some of the parents will know them. The kids will probably won't know them, but you got Rod
I
Carew,
will.
you got George Brett, you got
Mhm.
I don't know, my brain's gonna fry on me here, but all those Sean Casey, who I know and worked with very well, all these guys that hit over 300, they all talk about how they see the ball and how important it was, and they talk about how they saw spin and they see things differently. Same thing in softball, and I haven't talked to every great softball hitter. I think in some ways there are a couple in baseball too, but there are a couple in softball who are good guess hitters. Would I recommend it? No, but there are some people who get lucky and are become pretty good. They're smart people. But I can tell you, I've evaluated a lot of collegiate teams and national teams, and some of the best, usually the top hitter. I don't ask this a lot of time. Have the best visual skills on the team. And I'm going to go back in history, but is Crystal Bustos. Crystal has some of the best visual skills of any athlete in softball that we've seen on there. There are a few that have been pretty close, and I won't get into some of these other ones, but I've also seen some who've trained it and have become very competitive players, national team players. Some are still playing, um,
Mhm.
and lots of careers. And some of those are natural and some of those are trained on there. But even like some of my top hockey guys, and even I've probably evaluated, I don't know, a dozen or more NFL quarterbacks as well as receivers, and the more consistent ones, the more efficient ones, they all have these phenomenal visual skills. And again, you could play without them, but for the most part, the ones that are consistent and stay at top of their game tend to have those skill sets on there.
Yeah. I got to play with Crystal, and I'm surprised because she's been done for a while, but I played a couple years in pro ball with her, and we had those conversations, and it was some of it was the first time I'd heard it, and I was like, huh, all right, let me try that. So she was using it, and it's such a hard thing to see. Like we can see body mechanics, but we can't see that her eyes are really relaxed and not really looking at the release point until the body starts to move of the pitcher.
Yeah.
And then what she's doing in between pitches with her eyes was so intentional. But again, like until you have the conversations and then start to hone in on those moments of how are you, I think your last pillar, like how are you using your eyes? A lot of young players that are physically talented, they're athletic, but they're just kind of they're guessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is, I mean, it's huge. And we did some stuff when I was in college, but like, I mean, I've been done 20 years now, and this has really evolved. So can you talk a little bit about like where you've seen it get to now with when you're training athletes? Like how have you seen this piece grow?
That's it's actually a really good question, because I see it a little differently. It hasn't grown because I've been involved in it for so long. I've been doing it for so long,
Yeah.
and people always ask me the question, "What's new? What's this?" And and I'm going to say kind of both sides here. The reality is the eyes haven't changed; they're still the same. They've been the same for forever, right? Now there are some challenges that are worse today than what they used to be, and I'll give you one of them is obviously computers, right? It is phones and
I
computers.
knew you were going to say technologies like
Yeah,
this, our eyes
and
straining with
yeah,
this.
exactly. There's been some benefits of technology, and there's some negativity of technology. Now we're not going to get rid of it, so it's not like, hey, I won't go. Especially parents, not as much as we used to, but I used to get parents like, hey, tell my kids to stay off the phone, stay off game, and I'm like, I'm not going to tell them that because we're not going to eliminate it. Now, should we moderate it? Sure, we should be a little bit better to it. There's a lot of things we should moderate, but one of the problems that we see is with the phones being so close is that actually is that seventh muscle I was talking about is our focusing muscles not firing nearly as efficiently as it needs to. So in a sense, you're looking for technology, what's changed in a positive way, but some things negatively, and including nutrition. Some of the stuff in our vegetables and all those things aren't as good as they used to be in the older days. And so people had more natural vision and in some ways earlier in the years than they do today on there. So in a sense, something that's evolved has almost become more important. Now, as it becomes more important, people talk about it a little bit more. And unfortunately, as much as that's a good thing, it's also a bad thing. And you understand this, I'll explain the hitting side of things is there's almost too much information out there. And it's like what information is real and what information is not real. And some things are overcoached and undercoached. And some people don't really understand the concepts of it, right? And including you bring, I can probably talk about 100 different things when it comes to this, but you talk about watching the ball like this. It's amazing how many girls still watch the ball as the ball comes out of the glove.
I know.
And
Don't do that, guys. Don't do
yeah,
that. We have the benefit versus baseball where it always comes out of the same spot.
I know.
Let's take advantage of it.
That's what when people say that the difficult, I'm like, well, there's some easy parts in softball and there's some difficult parts, but that's one of the easy
Yeah.
parts is you always know
Right.
the release point. And the problem, and just to help your listeners, is when that ball comes up, your eyes go up, which means your head's going to go up and your body's going to go up. And then at the same time, it means you're late because you're following the ball, and the ball's going to be released before your eyes see the ball's being released on.
Yeah.
So then I'll ask these other people, and a lot of coaches out there. Sorry if I piss a few coaches off here, but
Yeah. Safe place. It's fine.
they're telling them to look at the hip. Okay, the problem with the hip is when pitchers turn, the hip disappears, right? And then at the same time, the hip is too high on there, and it's if you look at still shots of pitchers in college to all different levels, it is about a few inches above the knee is the release point
Mhm.
on there. And they're all looking up where the elbow is. And if they're looking at the elbow, it does again, they're going to see yellow, they're going to see an arm come through, but they're not going to see the ball like they need to, like the target that they're looking for.
Yeah. I remember us having an early conversation. And I think you brought up even the front knee of how like once it lands, and I had never heard that before. I was a pro athlete, played in the World Series, doing all these things. It's like, huh. And then I started watching just random videos. My days are done. But if I were to have adjusted what I was looking for or where, I mean, there was such consistency in that moment of right below, especially the front knee. I was like, okay, but
Yeah.
that's not where my eyes were fixed.
Yeah. And that's
So,
and two things to add to that is, first of all, the priority visual target is the ball. It's not the pitcher, it's the ball,
mhm.
right? And again, if you think about, even you're talking about my video here, but you think about a bullseye, the center of the bullseye, the archery target, that needs to be the ball. Now, it doesn't mean you don't see the rings around it. You're just not
Mhm.
you're not as sharp in the rings here. And so what happens is when you're so centrally focused at the right time, not over focused, not under focused on the ball, you'll see the body start to lean. You'll see the shoulder come up without having to go,
Mhm.
oh, I need to see what her body's doing on there.
Mhm.
And this kind of goes a little bit what I talk a lot of times, but and I know you and I talked about this, is my question for your athletes is, what is their task as a hitter? Okay. And this is how I think about things, is reverse engineering their task a little bit. And what most of them are going to say, and I'm going to fill this in, is to get on base, to get a hit, to move runners
Mhm.
over. Depends on the situation. To have a good at bat, all those. And I've heard a hit home run, whatever it is. Those are all goals that they want to have. And goals are
Yeah.
great because we feel good when we get goals on there.
Yeah.
But goals are made to be broken. They're not always going to work. They're good to have, but they're not always going to work. And the goal is to get on base, but the task is to see the ball the best they can. And then they have to make a good decision to put a good swing on it or take the pitch properly. If they do that simple thing every pitch, they're giving themselves a chance. Now, reverse engineering that, they got to see the ball the best they can. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means getting my eyes on time, right? Getting my eyes in the right location. It's being
Mhm.
focused, focused on the ball and not the outfielder, right? It's also seeing the ball as
Yeah.
long as possible, giving myself the most amount of time, extending the length of the pitch on there, and then recognizing what that pitch is going to do, and then either put that good swing on it, or like you said, I
Take it.
tell you to,
Yeah.
hey, stop, don't swing. This is not the one you
Mhm.
want on here. And just because it's a striker ball, those are things we don't control. Sometimes the umpire is going to be correct, sometimes they're going to be incorrect, sometimes you're going to hit a ball, sometimes you're going to take a strike. It doesn't matter. What you need to do is, this is my target. How can I slow this down? And you thought this way. This is a little bit more uh, college level, where your college level was, see the ball, I got to hit it, kind of thing. This is thinking
Yeah.
about, okay, what part of the ball am I looking for? Am I in there early enough on time? Am I seeing it long enough? Am I tracking it all the way
Mhm.
in? Am I
Mhm.
finishing the task at hand, instead of trying to, I got to go, I got to go, I got to get hit, got to do this.
I really like that you used task because man, does that seem more attainable.
Yeah.
And with our sport, like often you are trying to shift them away because so many hitters want to feel about what they did right after instead of think about what they did. And
Mm-hmm.
it's an emotional game. And like, it's funny to me, like so many hitters are surprised that most of their at bats end with them walking back to the dugout. Like that's the way the game is designed.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, if your only goal is to get a hit, you're gonna be sad for like your whole career. You probably won't last long versus, okay, what's my task? What a simple thought.
Yeah.
What a simple thought. Because if I can see, I have a better chance at accomplishing my task, which will be XYZ based on situation. So it's any
Yeah.
way we can
And
simplify
even,
the game for athletes is great.
even the fact, Nicole, if you did everything right in this game, you're still going to be out a lot of times.
There's 9 people with a glove on. I try to remind them all the time. It's like if you hit the ball hard in the direction you wanted to, like what the second the ball leaves, we don't have control. So that space that we do have control over, what are we doing to be the best that we can be in all those areas?
Yeah.
Which takes us back to what you do. And again, like I'm so glad that Lindsay and Show brought me over to talk with you and and just learn more about it. And it's always a good reminder for me. It's like I have to be consistent with implementing this part of the game consciously instead of just saying like keep your head down. Right? I definitely don't. I've stopped years ago saying like watch the ball. Like
Yeah.
because it's so broad and like everybody thinks they are. Nobody thinks they're not watching it.
Yeah.
So how can we get to the next level of that training?
That's kind of what we joke around. It's like, no duck, coach, and
Yeah.
we're actually a story to that. Why my dad did what he did. Longer period we don't have time for, but he played high school baseball. He played baseball at Cal Berkeley, and his high school coach ended up being the Fresno State baseball coach for many years. He's passed away too, but he said in high school he was coaching third base, and he told my dad to watch the ball, and my dad's like, I'm trying to, and he goes, how do I do it, or something like that. And the coach, he used to tell me this all the time. He goes, that's when I knew your dad was smarter than me. There. So, again,
Right. Like, well, what do you mean? Well, now you have to explain it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's easy, but it's not easy without work or effort. And again,
Mhm.
we're talking a little bit of this tactic stuff, but if you don't have the eye skills to do it, it makes it even more difficult. And if you don't have the sharpness of vision, it doesn't make it impossible. It's like playing with
It's
a weighted
harder.
backpack on, or a dead bat. You're not getting the most out of what you're capable of. And so that's why I look at that trifecta. If we can get everything working great, now, now it's all about the approach. And even if I have the right approach and I still fail, I put everything out there and did my best at that moment on there. But if I didn't do my best because I didn't look at the ball properly, or I was thinking about something, I was thinking about homework, I was thinking about dinner, I was thinking about this, or my eye skills weren't very good, or whatever it is, then you're not
Yeah.
getting the best opportunity out there.
So many parts to it. So I try to tell kids, I was like, I can teach you how to swing, but that's not going to help you hit. There's a lot of different parts and pieces. So
Yeah.
I think maybe my last question is like, we're talking about what it is. How can people engage in this part of their training more? Like whether it's at home and like, I mean, we've talked, me personally, like I don't have, Nebraska's budget to get every tool I could ever imagine. But what are some things that they can do, or if people do want to explore this more, whether it's with you or just tools that you use, what does that look like?
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to an earlier question you asked, what's new and all this stuff. And there are some great gadgets out there. There's some great marketing materials out there of different products out there. Are they going to do it for you? You know what? Look, I'm a fan of Snickers bar. If Snicker bar makes you feel like you see the ball better, keep eating those
Eat a
Snickers.
Snickers. Yeah.
But in the reality of it, um, there it's not a lot of work to get your visual skills up to par. Like I said, there's 7 muscles in each eye. Those muscles are very strong muscles already. It's not about getting your eye muscles to be stronger like you're lifting weights. It's really about more yoga for your eyes, getting them to move and getting the brain to fire those muscles better. And so there is some training. Obviously, we have our training modes that we
Mhm.
do that. There's a simple way we call our eye track that we use, and then there's a more not complex, but a little better, higher level. We
In
call
depth.
it our
Yeah.
3D depth perception and tracking trainer. They're not expensive. It's not even close to what your bat's going to cost you.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, this is pennies on
Then
the.
people blame the bat. Like, my bat doesn't work. I'm like, your eyes don't work.
Yeah.
Those are different. Yeah.
So, it's an easy way to start. And, there are ways, like for me, sometimes I do some virtual training. Obviously, I'm in Southern California. I get people that come and visit me. We do evals, we do some training, we work on the techniques, the tactics on there. There are a couple other tools out there. I'm obviously biased, but I'm a big fan of obviously the Max BP you mentioned up there is small ball training, because it forces you to focus a little bit more. It focuses you to trust a little bit more. And so learning how to control your eyes could be very good. So I'm a big fan of small ball machines. Um, whether it's hitting, fielding, all that stuff. Um, there's some video stuff or some of the visual processing skills, technology
Mhm.
out there. They're all pieces of the pie. Like I get nervous a little bit because I don't. There's not one piece of equipment that's perfect for everyone. I want people to think about like vision training is more like a gym. Now, you need all the gym equipment? Not necessarily. You can do things through home stuff and smaller
Mhm.
pieces of, but it's there's kind of a whole uh, exercise program that you can do to get these eyes to move a lot better, focus a little bit more, and aim a little bit better on there. And it doesn't take a long time for people's eyes to get better. They just have to do the work to get there and then use them in the right way.
Well, I think that's maybe the biggest part. Like, I don't do online lessons for what I do because I feel like there's so much more context when you're in person because of the conversation. So I think maybe a big piece of this is getting educated on what your eyes should be doing to perform at their best, and then training them to to do that job at a really high level. And so I'm going to put your information in the chat box, and I'm hoping that you guys reach out, because really what he's saying is like you know you can buy $1,000 bat or this application or pay for this recruiting company, and it's not going to actually address what's happening. And I hope that you guys reach out to Ryan, because he's really good at what he does. He's passionate about it, and man, is it helpful. Because if you can see, I'll just say this, you have a better shot at hitting.
Yeah, and I can show you really quick here. I won't go too deep into
Sure.
um let me just see.
Visuals for the visual training.
Yeah, let me
Let's do it.
let's pop this up here. I don't even know what screen I'm on here. Um okay, does that pop up? Did that pop up there?
It's black still, but there it is. Now it did. Yep, we're good.
Okay. Let me go from the now it's is it a slideshow mode or no?
Yes. Yes, now it is.
Okay. So this is just to show you these are guys, doing some of the 3D depth perception training up there. Most of these guys were minor leaguers. There's three major leaguers in this picture on there. Um, Guys doing different stuff, and they're just doing some eye exercises with these cards. Giancarlo Stanton's there. There's lots of some of these are old football players in there. Just different
I think
guys.
that's really helpful to see, like, okay, this is the visual of what it looks like. It's not, yeah.
Um, you could see if this popped up, there's a LSU one there in their helmet. Some people use some stuff on their bats, their gloves. So this is mostly baseball, but there's guys that have stickers in their hats in the past and their bats.
Hmm.
Uh, this one, let me see if this will play. I don't know if you can tell me if you can hear this.
Ian Happ has been working on
Yep.
some vision training. And so as he works
Mhm.
to kind of develop the focus and eyes, you'll see him juggle hacky sacks, use focus cards. And on the on deck circle, you see him take a look in his helmet. He's looking at focus stickers, and exactly what those are. I can't really get too detailed about it for proprietary reasons, but there's images that just kind of focus your eyes. It's something that he's been doing and actually brought to Cubs camp. So now other Cubs players use the coach, Ryan Harrison. He's been around the league at other spring trainings. This is the first time since David Ross has been manager that he has been with the Cubs. Guys like Patrick Wisdom are in on the training, and Wisdom told me really it's just about understanding that eyes create the rhythm when you stare at one thing. That's why you see them staring like Hap at that one thing. Otherwise, you kind of tense up, is how Wisdom described it to me. He said,
So that just kind of gives you a couple ideas, and this is one of my
Cool.
favorite ones right there. He was doing some training on deck on there. So I know it's not a real clear shot, but it just kind of shows you different people
Yeah.
doing different training out there. I actually have some great one. I have a great one of Savannah Jakowish over on the on deck circle doing the exercises before her at bat. So
Yeah, she was fantastic. Four-time All-American. Like,
yeah,
elite players, I think there's two things. Elite players will explore anything, but they won't adopt anything,
yeah,
because I think elite level athletes are always curious, like, how can I get better? It's never, oh, I'm good enough. But then they're really meticulous about, like, what am I going to let in my bubble and make a piece of my my training, my approach, my whatever it is. And so like that to me says a lot.
Yeah.
It's huge. So Ryan, thank you so much for sharing all of this information, and I could talk about it all day. And even having this interview reminds me of I need to continue to make sure I only get 90 minutes once a week,
It's
but
hard.
it's got to be a part of what we do. It's
Yeah.
got to be.
And there's a lot of things we have to do. We got to work on. You still got to lift weights. You still got to swing the bat. You still got to throw the ball. You still got to do all those other things. But it just makes it a little bit easier when you have the eyes and you have the visual focus to be able to do it. And we get away from that. We focus on the wrong stuff. And what I, in on this, we think we're so good that we can focus on everything. And what we need to decide is what are we focusing on at this given moment? And it's okay to focus on your swing for these 10 pitches. Just realize you're worried about your elbow. You're not worried about the ball on there. So you might miss it, you might miss hit it, all that stuff, because all you're working is getting that elbow to be right. And if you're really worried about what the ball is going to be doing, then you really should be focusing on the ball and not worry about your elbow on there. So learning to understand where you need to put that focus is a master class, to be honest with you. It's not easy for any of us for whatever job we have, but that's the challenge that great athletes have, is they know how to focus in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. And if they don't, they ask questions instead of, no, I got this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. And like I said, you guys, you should reach out, touch base with them. I'll get this to you as soon as I can. But remember all the parts it takes to become elite. And it's not just one thing. To his point, there's so many things we have to train, but this shouldn't be taking a back seat to it. So thank you guys. And Ryan, thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Nicole. Thank you.